Hi guys. Hi from Edinburgh where it's raining. Uh, but it's still kind of nice, we're wearing sweaters and all that. It's the middle of summer. And today we're going to talk about sex. It's a subject that I love, and I'm going to be answering all your questions that I got on the conversation. And before I start, I want to say that I'm not a professional. These are just my points of views, and that the second part of the conversation about sex, I will bring in pros. Okay, so don't take any of these as doctor's advice or psycholog advice. This is just my point of view. So before I start, I think that I want to make a little introduction about this because I've read so many questions, and a lot of them I feel resonated a lot with what I've been living myself in my many relationships. Being that we think that sex and desire should be something automatic. That when we love someone, it should be working uh, without any hiccups. That libido should be here. That we can have extremely busy lives and jump from doing the dishes to being a sexy woman in the bedroom. And one thing that I've learned is that it just does not work like that. So before I start everything and answering, more detailed questions, I think that sex is something we bring in our lives. Sex and, of course, sensuality, feeling sexy, feeling desire are things that we bring. Sorry, I'm just gonna stop the noise of my email. Are things that we're responsible of bringing in our lives. So it can go from reading books that are erotic or romantic or whatever turns us on. For some people, it's feeling really great in their body. I know that for me, it's definitely a plus. It can be just talking with your partner about it. It can be sending texts all day about sex. It can be also having conversation with your friends, watching movies. I think it's that idea of like, it's gonna sound unsexy, but sex is kind of like a hobby, like an activity. It's not something that we just switch on and it happens. We need to bring it in different parts of our lives, bring it to our mind, think about it, even if it's in the bathroom every day, like remind ourselves that we're a sexual creature. We tend to forget that, and then we're surprised when let's imagine it's the evening and you haven't done it for a while and you're like, why don't I have desire right now? This would be the perfect moment and I don't feel ready. Well, it's probably because you're just cold, like you haven't warmed yourself over the last few days and all that, and so it's going to be hard to start the engine, I will say. So I think my main approach to this, just as a woman, not as a professional, is to really try to make it something fun, to try to make it something real, meaning give it the time and give it the respect. It's like in everything, and I think Rachel in the conversation said it really well. You get as much as you give. If you have to kind of put in the work, and of course then there are things don't always work as easily as that, but the idea of creating that environment for ourselves, I think is super super important. All right, so I'll say more about all that through responding to all of your questions, but I just wanted to start with this. All right, so I tried to make it kind of an order, but it might be a little bit messy, so I'll try to make it as coherent as possible, okay? So, does sex have to be synonym with love? Um, all right, this is my very personal point of view, but I, like a lot of us, grew up on Sex and the City, and I've been dreaming about, Samantha's like relationships and how she's able to just go from one man to the other and just enjoy casual sex. I've said that before, I think in one of my newsletters, but I've really never been somebody that can, and I've wanted to, because I wanted sorry, I'm getting notification from everywhere. It's so hard to stop them today in this crazy world. Um, I've always wanted to be kind of the adventurer, right? I want to see myself as an Amazon and as somebody that, like, is powerful in her sex life and, will go after her desire and all these type of things. But the truth is, I've never really had a one night stand that was really great, or I've had very few and all of them were shitty, because I guess I need to know people a little bit better, and also it's just not me, and I'm starting to accept this. So I know some of my friends are able to do it. What I've been feeling when they talk to me about it is that they are able to have more detachment with their emotions. And I don't know if that would work for me, honestly. And it hasn't, the last guy I had casual sex with, or like, let's say, like a one night stand, I felt completely in love with. And when I say in love, I don't know exactly, like, if it was real love, but like definitely just went after him after that. Like, and I've read somewhere that women grow attachment hormones or something like that as soon as they have sex with a man, and so it really applies to me. So overall, my journey as a freed sexual woman has really not been about being able to be empowered through casual sexual relationships. It's come from a totally different place, and I'm going to talk about that. I haven't had a very easy sex history, if you'll say. I've never had, and I've never been abused or anything, but definitely probably started having sex too early. Definitely like explored too many things too early, and then I had a kind of a breakdown, and I've been with different men and one woman, and it's been really a journey of understanding my desire and all that. So I'll try to pepper the lessons I've learned through answering your questions. Okay, here's a funny one. Does phone sex work? Well, you know, I've been in many relationships where traveling is a big part of the deal, and I love phone sex because it's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning. It's like it's just another part of the activity of being sexual with your partner. It's super awkward in the beginning. You don't know what to do, but I think it's so important to, let's say that between two partners, you need to build a language, right? So it can be the sexual language can be through touch, obviously, smells. It can be through words, and I think it's really important to try to stretch that language as much as possible through the years and the weeks and all that. So and the number one thing to be able to have is a sense of humor, because if you're going to try new things, some are going to fail and some are going to be ridiculous, and sometimes it's going to be amazing. But I think it's very important to know that it's not all serious. Sex is supposed to be a game and a play, and if that's the case, then we have to be willing to take risks and to be stupid and to feel crazy sometimes. So of course, I love phone sex, and I do on the texts, or like it can be, you know, with the camera and all these things. I'm pretty okay with my nudity and all these type of things if there is good lighting. But you know, yeah, I just, I like trying, I like experiencing, and I think we have one life and it goes really fast. And so you know, finding someone with whom you can play is super important. So phone sex, as well as like every other type of game, whether it's bringing in sex toys, whether it's, you know, I don't know, anything you can think about, I think is a great thing, because anything that's going to bring new words to your sex vocabulary with your partner can only better it. Even if you decide, you know what, this was great as a fantasy, but when we do it in real life, it's not that amazing. So let's just keep dreaming about it, and that's it. You know, some people only need that. I know people who dream, for example, of trying a threesome. But it will always stay a fantasy, and they can talk about it and they'll never do it. Because that's, you know, the fantasy is enough to bring, you know, spice to the bedroom. So try things, talk about it, and that probably, you know, brings me to talk about communication, which sex is communication. It's so much more than that, obviously, but it's really about, you know, finding how to communicate what we are, what we need, how to communicate, how to express our love, uh, and so I think it's really, it should be, I mean, in my experience, it's always better if we're able to talk about it, one way or another. You know, communication doesn't always have to be face to face. Some people are shy and they'd rather text, or, you know, call or write a letter or whatever. But I do think that over the years, you know, communication is probably one of the secrets of keeping excited and keeping the connection present. So somebody asked me about sex the first night, and it's going to it's interesting because I've never had a problem with this type of things, and actually it's never really a question that I asked myself until I moved to America. There is, you know, and so my very direct answer is, why not? You know, why not sex the first night? We're adults, you know, it's okay to love sex, it's okay to want it, it's okay to be excited when you're with someone, and it's okay to share, you know, to share that. And I'm not so worried about people thinking that I am, I don't know, like a slut or these kind of things. I don't care if a person is so literal, or like, you know, so I, you know, I just, these kind of problems are not really mine. So if they are yours, we can talk more about it. But I just, I guess I feel so comfortable with my libido, my sexuality, that I'm not so worried about being seen as a slut. I'll talk later about being made to feel like shit in your couple, because that happened to me. But in a new relationship, I express my sexuality really fast, and it's actually, I think, I don't know. I think it's one of my charms. You know, I think it's this kind of ease about just bringing it up. But I also bring it up in my sense of humor and all that. So I guess it's part of my personality. So sex the first night, yes, but it brings me into, I mean, for me, but it brings me into talking to you about the difference between Europeans, I guess, or like what I could say about French people, which I'm French and I live in America, and I've never seen as many differences between cultures as the differences between France and America. So how could I describe that without, you know, I'm not judgmental about any these cultures. I just think I was born in France, and that's where I started my sensual and sexual life, and I grew up in a French family and all that. So let's just say it's more of my culture, and it was always harder for me to adapt to the American culture. It's details that tell a lot, but just to explain to you, and I know that we are from everywhere in the world. For example, a woman in France who wants to have sex the first night will never be treated as or seen as a slut or whatever. This question like rarely happens. I know things have changed in the last 10 years that I've been in America and that France has become more Americanized and all that, but I can say pretty confidently that women and men have the same, they're allowed to desire and to go at it if that's what they want. In America, it's very different. There is really this question of should I do it? So I'm just gonna stop my text from here. Should I do it the first night or not? And you know what? It's a very important question because cultures are cultures and we need to take them into account. So having been with Americans, I would say that taking it slow sometimes with somebody that's American is a better idea. It's not that, the guy is less evolved or whatever we can say. It's just that, this is those things that we've been taught since we were kids have a big imprint on our minds. And I think in America there's this idea that, a good woman or whatever you want to call it, or somebody of value should wait a little bit. And honestly, I would play that game with an American. I would go for it. And that also comes back to this idea that it's a game, sexuality is a game. So you and having sex, not having sex, waiting, not waiting, all these things, they should be playful, and they should also be adapted. And not that you have to change yourself, but know who you're with. And if you're with a super classic guy, for example, that you feel, it will mean a lot to him if I give it for example, like I remember when I met one of my boyfriends, being the person I am, I wanted to have sex the first night, and he felt offended. And so, you would think that, he would be happy that somebody would want to jump on him and all that. But because he thought, I was serious for him, like he really liked me and all that, the fact that I was like, hey, do you want to come to my place? He felt offended. He would have rather that I'd wait maybe like a couple dates to go at it. Whereas for me, it was a proof that I was attracted to him, excited about being with him, and that I wanted to know him better. But that French people and American people are very different. So next time, or I hope there is no next time, because I hope, the guy I'm with right now is forever. But if there was a next time and he was American, I would definitely kind of try to see what is important to him, and to not just go at it as, me, my culture, my values and all that. Being with someone, whether it's for a short amount of time or for forever, also means, embracing his bias and his culture. So that's a few of the differences between French and European. I want to cover a couple more because I think they're very telling. I know that a lot of my American friends have talked to me about blowjobs as, in America, something that you do if you don't want to have sex with someone, something that you do if you want to, for example, you're young and you want to stay a virgin. And just to explain to you how different it is for French girls, and I know it's changed a lot, but a blowjob is only something we'll do to someone that we love. So it's a big present. It's not something you do just like, oh, I'll get rid of the guy, I'll just give him a blowjob and then go. I know I've heard a lot of my French friends say, like, I'm not putting somebody's dick in my mouth if I don't really love him, because that's my face. So there are many cultural differences, and I would love to hear maybe in the conversation, like, things from your countries. I know there's people from all around the world. I'm sure it's very different everywhere, but I think those are important to take into consideration and to realize that we're all different and come with different perceptions about sex. All right. How do you initiate? Well, I think that if there is going to be a fire, it's very easy to light it, It can be a look, it can be a joke, it can be just like, come here and, like just kiss him. It can be, very simply these type of things. When there is no flame or like no fire already, it's terrible. Last year, way before I met my boyfriend, I was going after a guy, and he just, I don't know if he didn't care about me. I just couldn't understand what he was doing with me. Like, he was always around me, but I still to this day, I don't think he knows what he wanted. Anyway, one night, I decided, okay, I'm going to initiate, and it was the saddest, most depressing thing ever, because he wasn't really reciprocating. So I was like kind of kissing him, and it was the most miserable thing. And of course I left and I never had sex with him and all that. He's kind of like cold, And so I think, the question about initiating is always the most simple. It should be easy if there is something going on between the two of you, grab their hand, say some funny, depending on your personality, and it should ignite the fire. If it's not there, just go away. Don't have that miserable evening that I had where I felt not only rejected, but also completely undesirable. It was horrible. Okay. Now, there is a lot of questions about libido. So just be ready. I'm going to try to cover that. It's something that we all, as women and men too, are dealing with, more than techniques and tips and all that, how to do this and how to do that. I think one of our main questions today, is how to want it, So let me explore a little bit and try to respond as best as I can with what I know and who I am. And I will bring Alyssa Vitti, and we can also talk about hormones, because one of the first things that I want to say is that our sex drive is very, very, very linked to our hormones. And often we're going to be mad at ourselves for not being desiring, or at our partner, and we can wait years to go check with a doctor, whereas I think it should be the first thing we do. If you feel that you're not perfectly attuned with your body and all that, I would definitely, like, before you ask yourself question about like psychology and do you love him and does he love you and are you asexual, like what's your, all that, go check your hormones. So that's my number one advice, and we'll talk about this with Alyssa soon. She's coming here, and not in my apartment in Edinburgh, but in the conversation, and I'm gonna have a nice chat with her. We can talk about that. So, number one thing, if you feel low libido, which is a lot of you ask me these questions, check your hormones. Number two, I want to say, be easy on yourselves as women. Most of us here are women. We are cyclic women, so cyclic creatures. Meaning that, I don't know if you've ever felt that, but I know that in the middle of my cycle, I feel much more naturally aroused than at the end. And it really depends. And, if you, and so I think it's really important to start taking notes of, how is your body? How do you feel about yourself? These kind of things. And to understand that there is not only cycles in your month, but also, cycles of, years and moments in our lives where there is more room for sex, less room for sex, and that it's very important to accept that about ourselves, and to not be too hard, and to realize that maybe, this year is about work and I don't want to have sex much and I don't feel bad about it. So there is no reason to add more pressure to the pressure of already being a human and everything that's been asked of us. If you don't feel like it for a little while, just, let it be. So I just want to say that because I think we've been so programmed to feel like we're not enough and we're not doing enough and we're not producing enough. And sex is interesting and it's wonderful. And in my life, I think it's a very important part of my life, but it doesn't need to be the same for everyone. So it's important to be cool with that. We're all different, and we all have different priorities. And also, we can have 10 years without sex, and then 10 next years are going to be fucking fireworks, So this is the second thing that I wanted to say that I think is really important. All right, now your questions. Me and my partners don't really mind not having sex. Should we be worried? So just let me drink a little bit of water. So I think that it's always important to use this as information. Sorry. There you go, I'm back. I think it's very important to use this as information and this as like conversation starters. I don't think it's a huge deal if you don't want to have a lot of sex with your partner, but I do think it's a huge deal if you never talk about it, if it's something that is not bothering you, but you're also kind of never really like communicating about it, so you're not sure what's going on. And there is deep subjects about desire and who we are in a relationship and what we bring to each other. There are many different types of couples, and we need to kind of choose the type of couple we want to be in. And we're getting so used now to choose people on a list of things. I met my guy on an app and all that, but I know that sex was something that was very high on my list of priorities. I have had a relationship without it, meaning that the person I was with had basically no libido. And that's definitely something that I never wanted to have to deal with again. I'll tell you a little more about this later, because I think it's very important and it's very desperate when it happens to you. So you need to ask yourself, and again, it comes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Sex is an activity. Is it important to you? Like, how much do you want it? Is it something that makes you feel better about yourself? Is it something that's really built into your identity or not? All these questions are very personal, and I don't think we should pressure ourselves for, fitting in any way, okay? So, but sex is also something that really tells a lot about the state of a couple, what we want, where we are. And so I think if sex disappears slowly, whether it's never been there or it was, like fireworks and then it stopped, talk, write in your diary, talk with your partner, explore, and keep exploring, because sometimes for me, often if I lose desire, it's because I'm losing love. It's not for everyone. I know many couples that, that's how they want it. But I know that for me, and I have that experience, I didn't have it before. So I stayed, for example, in a relationship where I didn't want to have sex anymore with the guy, and it was driving him crazy. And it was very unfair of me to just, be like, nope, no, I don't want it anymore. I don't want it. I don't want it right now. I won't want it next week and all that. And I never asked myself the question what I was doing. So, what I'm trying to say here is that explore it before you throw it away. You might find interesting answers. You might find that, you're actually really missing it. You might find that actually for now you prefer to, I don't know, there's so many things that can happen. A couple is something it's living, it's not always the same thing. Maybe you have young children and you really want to focus on being a mother or parents, and this is not really the moment. It might come back. But question yourselves and know why, and know how long you want this to last, and all these kind of things. Okay. How to keep the desire with your partner. Okay, so I haven't been in relationships that, were super extra. I think the longest ones were 7 years. And each time, there was a breakup at the end, obviously. And before that, usually it was announced by, a lesser interesting sex life. That said, I want to go back to, what I was saying in the beginning, and really stress that sex starts within ourselves. We need to decide if it's important for us. We need to decide how much energy we want to give it. Sex is energy, so you just you bring it into your life. We need to decide to create space for it, whether it's with reading, giving ourselves time. I haven't had any questions about masturbation, but it's a huge subject for women, discovering your own body. Whether I'm single or in a couple, it's always a big thing for me. I love it. I can do it every day, sometimes not for weeks, but super an important part of my health and my wellness and my relationship with myself, and all these kind of things. So what I'm trying to say is that the space is not just the moment when he has his dick in your vagina, or if you're gay, it's not that. It's not the moment when you're both in the bed doing something. Sex is when it's everywhere. It's every day. It's in your, you have to bring it. And that maybe is something that feels more French, but that sensuality for me is something you need to bring in your life constantly. I make sex jokes all day long, and that's always been that, I've always been like that. I can be in the kitchen and show my boobs to my boyfriend. I'm very silly with these type of things, which sometimes they don't really know how to react, but I've taken I'm fine with the role of the slightly outrageous girlfriend, I guess. And by that I'm just mean making space for this in our lives. So by the way, we should start. And I don't even read a lot of erotica. Of course I've read Anais Nin and all these things, and I'll be happy to share the couple books that I've read about it. But and I'm I can talk about porn. I'm not watching porn usually, but I wouldn't mind sometimes. Like I just don't, I'm kind of lazy about looking for good ones, and you've seen porn, it's just sometimes a little bit depressing, so I don't do it. But all these things can be fun, which brings me to something that I didn't really come up in the questions, but I want to talk about this. So to keep desire, we have to understand, I think, that desire is something that comes from, of course, beauty and inspiration and love, but also from hate, from clashes, from, desire is, you cannot see it as something that's just about romance and love and all that. A couple is a story of differences. A couple is a story of things that shouldn't work together and they do. It's the clash of opposites. It's all these things together. Okay? Sex is not just romance. It can be, and that's beautiful, but we need to understand that sex is the playground of adults. And the playground of adults means that it's like where we can be dirty, and sex can't be clean all the time. Sex is not clean, it's impossible. You exchange fluids, you sweat, you stink, whatever you're doing, there might be weird moments. And so it's very important to understand that, sex is a place where we need to be free. And I want to talk about this, very important. Somebody asked me how to be a feminist in the bedroom. And I want to say, don't be. Just be whoever the fuck you really want to be at that moment. And it might be a feminist, it might be a strong woman, it might be a dominatrix, it might be you want your guy to dominate you, it needs to be free of politics, it needs to be free of self-judgment, it needs to be free. And I know I'm giving all these things and it's probably a lot of pressure on you, but we need to try to go there, because that's where we build our freedom, and that's where we build connection, and that's how we build something with our partner that's beyond the social conventions, right? So I think it's that idea that you decide who the fuck you want to be, you decide how crazy you want to be, and you decide with your partner where you meet, and you decide if, and so that's what I think. To me, there needs to be polarization, we can't be in the same energy. Like there needs to be something that's, clashing hard. And that's why I like, the idea that even in gay couples, there is, I've been in a gay couple for 2 years, and sex was great. It was interesting, and also normal, and also everything. But there was definitely a polarization. It could change, like it could be, and it doesn't mean, oh, one is the man, one is the woman. That's not that idea. But it's that idea of like, one is coming after the other one is like, so there is that idea that always there is this idea that in order to get together, things have to because what is it is like with magnets, if it's the same polar, they don't match, but if it's opposites, then that's when things kind of work together. So embrace that if you can, and just go beyond all of the social constructs that you have. You won't be able to go against all of them, but like, try to make this your place of playing, your place of like being stupid, your place of being outrageous, your place of being whatever you want. It's so important. Okay, let's keep going. Yes, and so to keep desire, start there, and then engage in a if you want to be someone for your whole life, a lifelong conversation with your partner, and make space for it. You know, I'm at the beginning of a relationship. We don't need to make space for it. Space makes itself, right? It's normal. That's happened to everyone. Now, in a couple years, it might be where, you know, he's working and I'm doing this, and I will go, or, you know, and I'll be like, hey, let's meet, you know, Saturday. And then I'll be thinking about it for 3 days or whenever, you know, like, I think I have a question later about how many times a week and all that, so I'll come back to that. But it's this idea of sensualizing ourselves, sexualizing yourself, and remembering that you can't give the responsibility of everything to just like, you know, your partner. He can't be just like bringing the sex, you know, on his own. You have to make the sex be a whole thing in your life. I hope I answered well, but I think you see what I mean. Okay, here is the question, the subject I was talking about a little bit earlier. I'm looking at the time and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to talk about. How do you feel? What do you do when you feel rejected by your partner? Okay, so this happened to me, and it was, apart from the failure of my IVF, the most painful thing that I have ever experienced. So if you're living that right now, just know that you might not recognize how much you're suffering, which I didn't because I wanted that relationship to work. But it's deep, it cuts really deep, and it's really hard. So whether you want to make peace with it, whether you're wondering if you've done something wrong and you're not enough and all that, I just want to, it should almost be a whole subject on its own. So I'm going to think about it because it's so deep as a suffering, and there is so many chapters to it and so many reasons and so much of our self-hate that's being, you know, expressed in that. Like, why would we you know, stay with someone who doesn't desire us, is a huge question. But like, what I would say is, you need, first thing, and then I want to, you know, listen to your questions after that. If you are going through that, and, you know, for those of you who've never experienced that, feeling rejected can be from, you know, it almost brings tears to my eyes. Your guy, or, you know, your girlfriend, like, you know, never looking at you in a sensual way, never acknowledging your desire when you want to have sex and make it obvious, making you feel like you're a nymphomaniac or a slut. When the moment comes to have sex with them, and, you know, they're kind of looked at like they're forcing themselves, and you feel like you're basically having sex with a dead body, and that somebody's making you a favor, and that you've been asking too much. It can go as far as, you know, being made to feel like, you know, if they don't desire you, it's your fault. It's because you're not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not sexy enough, you know, and often these things can escalate because the person who doesn't have libido feels bad, and so they are going to project it on you, and it's a huge subject, so I can't cover it. I'm happy to cover it in another, you know, one of these conversations with you, but I just want to say it's an extremely serious subject, and if you are the person who's rejecting your partner, it's also a huge question to ask yourself. Don't just brush it off because you don't want to do it. If you're making someone, if your partner is telling you that they're suffering, or if you feel like they're suffering because of your lack of desire, take it really seriously, because the pain you're inflicting is incredibly deep. There are books written about that. I've read a lot of them because I went through it. And I think the lack of understanding between the person that has the libido and the person who does not is, because I've been in two roles actually. I've been in both roles. I've been in the role of the one that was rejecting, thinking, oh my God, sex is not that important, just leave me alone, I don't want to do it. And then I've been in the role of the person who was like desperate to be looked at and all that. And I can tell you, I didn't realize what I was doing when I was pushing away my partner. So it's a big subject. We can talk more about it. It cuts very deep. Just know that you have to, address these, because the problem is like the more time goes, the more your self-confidence will crumble, your self-love will crumble, and it's deeply painful. Okay, I'm just reading because I took a few notes about that, because as you just saw, it's a very important subject for me. Yeah, one thing that I wanted to add is that you can't just brush it off, because it will, if there is such a huge disparity between your desires, it will end up impacting your relationship, of course. So think about this, and we can talk about these subjects a little bit more if you're interested. So now there is like the same type of problem, but at a lower level, which is, if you have different types of libidos, like one wants to have sex every day and the other one wants to have sex once a week. In that case, I don't think it's a huge problem. I think it's just a problem of communication. Talk, and decide what you can do. Let's say you're the person who wants to have sex once a week, which is very healthy, or twice a month, which is fine. And then your partner is an everyday type of person, which can be a lot of pressure for people who, have a little less libido. I think there is a way to find compromise, and then to make it where you enjoy yourself when, the time comes and all that. So, going back to what I said in the beginning about creating space, creating a moment, sometimes, I like the afternoon, for example, so it's kind of weird for people, but I love, saying, okay, like, I don't know, come in the bedroom at 2 p.m. and, then we can spend an hour or two enjoying each other. And some people are from the morning. And I think it's important to not think that we're going to meet someone and they're going to be exactly perfect and perfectly aligned with our sexuality, but to think, okay, let's talk. We love having sex together. We're just not exactly like, the same in terms of our timelines, or like, or the moments when we like it the best. Let's make it work. If you want to have sex, you'll definitely make it work. Okay. Just to go back to the idea of, not lack of desire, the hormonal thing that I was telling you, go check your hormones first before you go to the shrink, before everything, because that's, our hormones are driving our libido. So start there. And same for men, okay? Very important. They'll be very resistant because they're very scared of talking about all this. But it's important. We're modern people in a modern society. Our hormonal balance is kind of under attack, even though I hate to be alarmist about anything. We live in societies that are like a little bit toxic emotionally, with all the porn and all the we're pushed to be this weird creature of sex, that maybe we're not, and we don't. There is a lot of, emotional toxicity, and then there is also a lot of, toxicity in the food we eat and the air we breathe and all that. It can definitely impact our libido, but it can also impact men's libido a lot. So it's important that they go and check these things before you start having fight about the fact that he doesn't want to have sex. Men are very impacted by that. Okay, just wanted to say that. All right. I've had a few questions about sex after 50, and I want to say before that I've observed, and you tell me what you think, that my sex drive has grown over the years. I just, feel more alive and more at home in my body, and more desiring. So if it's any question, I know I have, some of us are very young, and some of us are, like a little bit older and all that. So I just wanted to say that to the youth. It can be very interesting getting older in that. But so I had questions that are more technical about, our vagina after 50 and all these kind of things, which are questions that I can't answer directly. Even though I want to say right here that I use lubrificant and all, I try everything, but I do when I need it, or even, when I masturbate and all that. I do. I actually have a friend who has a great brand, and I want to bring her, that's called Mod, and I want to bring her on also to talk about these details and how to make our personal sex life more fun and all that. So, but I'm not a, I'm not 45, I'm not 50 yet, and I think these questions I'll also ask to Alyssa Vitti, who's going to come on the show. So I'll have answers for you, okay? Oh, Gretchen asked me a question about being polyamorous. And how we manage, kind of our animality, and the fact that, yes, we're humans and we live in society, and couple is usually seen as being two people and all that, but really, is that true, right? That's kind of the question. Well, I can only answer from my point of view, and here is how I go about things. I've always felt free in my mind about love, attraction, and I've never forbidden myself anything. So it means that if I want to flirt, if I just have this very natural, and you can see that because I'm somebody who loves communicating, touching people and all that. So in my mind, all these the doors are open, and somebody asked, do we have only one partner for the rest of our lives? And I never really think like that. And so maybe that's the reason why I am probably the most, and I'm a Taurus, as a lot of you know, but like I am one of the most loyal partners, and I don't think I could deal with anything polyamorous and all that, just because it's not my personality. But I think part of it is also because it's allowed, in my emotional makeup, it's allowed to be attracted to different people. It's allowed to flirt with my eyes with someone. It's allowed to dream. It's allowed to, the doors are open inside. The landscape is vast, and fantasies is encouraged, and then the result, I guess, has been for all my life that I'm faithful and focused on one person I'm with, and all these type of things. But I think it can be different for different people. I also like simplicity, and I felt that, triples or all these type of things are fucking complicated. But look, I'm French. I think things of love shouldn't have too many crazy rules. I believe that, and this might be a little bit controversial, but I'm gonna give you an example. I had a friend that was with her husband, and they just had kids, and she felt horrible because, I don't know, her body, she had gotten fat, like, he wasn't very desiring and all that. She met a guy at work, and it was steamy right away, and the guy was very clear with what he wanted, and she wanted him, and she called me and she was like, what do I do? And I was like, and don't judge me, but it's true. I told her, go for it, have fun, never tell your husband. And then, and she did it. And it changed her life, She got back into herself, she felt desired. I don't know how is her sex life with her husband now, but, I think we have to allow ourselves to get what we need when we need it, as long as we're very clear with what we want. And that might be the tricky thing. So that's why, this was an interesting story. I knew she needed that, but it might not work for everyone. What I mean to say is that there are no rules. You have to decide, and that the world is big and open, and that sex is easy to have, okay? But then another story, another friend of mine was with her husband for, I don't know, like 15 years. And she told me, oh, there is this guy and I'm very much into him and all that. Should I go ahead? And knowing my friend, I was like, listen, I know you're not feeling sexy and you want, to be looked at and all that, but I don't think you can handle it. I think that you're going to do it and then you're going to feel huge guilt. And I said, I also think that if ever your husband hears that, it's going to break him, and you'll never forgive yourself. And it was pretty harsh on me, but I really knew the person. And when I told her that, she was like, you completely realigned me into my values, because she was kind of losing it, and she losing them, in her lack of desire and all that. So it's I don't have, there is not one rule. It's really about how we are, how we feel, what we can handle, and how much we can handle. It's like money, some people cannot have too much of it because they go crazy. Okay. I am looking at more questions, and I think I covered so many of them, which is really good. So I have a question that I don't think I've actually covered, and then I need to go because it's 57 minutes, 44 seconds, and it's a lot. How do we feel sexy? Okay. So, how do we feel sexy? We are responsible for this. It's, you bring you're sexy, he finds you sexy or she finds you sexy. You need to go halfway, as the same as, your partner needs to go halfway. So looks are important. We're talking about sex. I mean, unless you really don't care. I know I care. And again, I kind of stopped putting social judgments on things. Like there is a guy that attracts me, or like, a way that I look at my body and I feel sexy. And I don't want to put in too much, how would you say, like, social obligations on it. Like, for example, when I had put on so much weight, I couldn't find myself sexy. And I could have tortured myself, and as I did for years, saying, you have to accept yourself the way you are, you're beautiful the way you are, body positivity is super important, your guy needs to love you the way you are, if he doesn't love you that way, he doesn't love you, all these kind of things. The truth is, I couldn't love myself that way. So there was two ways I could go: either do deep emotional, psychological work that I didn't even know if it was ever going to be successful, or do a diet and lose, I don't know, I lost like maybe 6 kilos or something. I chose the diet. maybe one day I will change that, but and that's the thing. And I'm being very honest with you. I know some of you will be maybe mad at me but it's my very personal journey, and I think we have to uh, do the job of loving ourselves first, whatever that means for us. And so not judge other people, but like, we can't go looking like a piece of shit to our boyfriend and say, love me for whatever I am. It's not how it works. I don't want that from my boyfriend. I want him to take care of himself, you know? So when we do that, and I really have to go because it's too long and also I have a meeting, but when we do that, we are being children that are asking our parents to love us no matter what. It's not what's going on in a couple. You don't want to be the child of your partner, okay? You want to be a grown-up woman who loves herself, who brings her best self. So do the work of loving yourself, and if your partner is healthy and all that, like, it should kind of work where, they also compliment you, and it's kind of a virtuous cycle. I mean, that's how I think it should be working. All right, fuck, I'm late. I think I am basically done, but there is one last question, which is, how do you define great sex? And I think honesty and connection are really defining things for me. And having fun is super important. Okay, it was such a pleasure. I could have talked about this for many more hours. I have many things to say. Let's keep the conversation going, okay? All right, bye guys.